Welcome all to another Inference Gateway OSS meeting. It is September 11th. Just so you all know, before we get started, please follow the CNCF guidelines, as that is what we do here. We are uploading this to the cloud as well, so recommending behaving appropriately for the internet, I will say. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. Just checking AIs from last week. I'm not seeing many. Um, it might be this one, revisiting multi-cluster, which we have at the top of the list. So I see Ryan. I think I see that you're here. Do you want to go ahead and take this away?
No, when I actually put this on, I haven't seen the new one. I think I forget his name. Putting a new one. I think that the new one is much better now with a lot of a lot of the questions. Maybe not the answer I'm looking for, but at least there are some information because the previous example proposal has a lot of how do I say, like the gaps in this proposal. It makes me wonder what actually is the proposal. Uh, I I took a quick glimpse at the new proposal, it, and now at least have the uh, answers to many of my questions. I actually have a lot of questions for these answers, but at least we get things that we can discuss more on. I haven't got a chance to, because this is like dropped like this morning or something. I haven't got a chance to read through this. I'm reading through this, adding comments like right now, and the Keith already started to have some questions. Maybe my question now is actually, is it better to wait for the next meeting, or we can start to do some async ones through the Slack? What's the normal process? And
That sounds
one more background is we are actually actively trying to implement that. So we are kind of getting uh, iterative approach now. We are um, in the process of implementing that too. So
cool.
yeah,
When you
Ju-
refer to the, sorry, Rob, I just want to be clear. When you refer to the alternate proposal, do you mind linking that here, just so that
oh,
everyone
oh
is
yeah,
on the same page?
it's this. And no, the proposal didn't change. It's the same link. This link didn't
Oh,
change.
okay,
So
okay,
the
cool. You
author
just
just
kind
submit
of
push
updated
the,
it.
yeah, it
Got it.
push the new version and kind of clean out all the previous comments.
Cool. Sorry, Rob.
Because
So yeah, I feel like I misunderstood. So you're working on implementing inference extension or like multi-cluster specifically inference?
multi-cluster specifically. So this proposal
Awesome. Awesome. Is this for what project is this for?
project, I'm from multi-cluster SIG, and I'm working on multi-cluster project called QB Fleet.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But I'm
Yeah,
also
that'd
on
be
the
awesome.
SIG. I think you dropped by
Okay.
our SIG a few weeks
Yep,
ago.
yep, yep. Okay, that'd be awesome. Yeah, we're so Becca, Danny, and I were talking about this yesterday, trying to find, um, yeah. So a few different directions we can go there. Danian pushed a ton of updates to this PR yesterday that have a lot of details we should walk through. Um, but one of the things I think is related to what you're saying, Ryan, is um, we've been looking for. There's some interest in some kind of neutral implementation, like for MCS, there's Submariner, right? That plumbs endpoints together. It's plausible that Submariner could help with the plumbing here. It's plausible that something else could. I don't know if that's what you're looking at doing.
Just to clarify, the implementation we are thinking of is we want to put this implementation supporting this multi-cluster inference pool extension into Istio. So the
Oh, awesome! Yeah, yeah,
actual
yeah.
implementation will be in Istio, although Kubi Fleet is the multi-cluster one. The actual implementation currently we're planning to put in Istio.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I think there's a lot of folks here that are relying on Istio's support inference extension. So
yeah, that's why I was kind of trying to figure out the details from my previous proposal, but now I think we have a lot of them now in the current version, but we will have some questions.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, if you wanna, so Becca, Danian, and I have been meeting somewhat regular, every now and then, and I think that'll ramp up. We are trying to have this not just not just the API done, but actually some basic implementation hopefully ready by KubeCon in a couple months. And so we are trying to ramp up. We were all focused on the 1.0 release, and now we're switching as quick as we can into this at full speed. So
that's the same timeline we plan to demo this KubeCon.
Awesome. Okay. Well, nothing like some conference-driven development to get things. But great. Okay. Well, it sounds like we've got the same goals. Let's. This is an open invite, to be clear, but it seems like there's a fair number of people that are interested in talking about multi-cluster inference, and so I don't want to just completely overwhelm this meeting with that. We can, but particularly since Danian's on a flight right now, so I know he couldn't make today's meeting. But if there are folks, Ryan, it sounds like you're interested. If there are others, we can try and have like some kind of. I don't think there's going to be a ton of meetings, but there may be, as we're hashing out the final bits of details here, it may be helpful to have some, one or two more meetings to figure out any remaining things. But if there are others, I know Itai, you've left a lot of great comments. If there are others, just ping me, or Danian or Becca or someone, and make sure we get you included. Kellen, you've had a hand for a minute.
Yeah, no, it wasn't pressing, so I didn't jump in. But one question I had: the inference pool selection, that is the actual L7 proxy that makes the selection, is because it says implementation specific. So I imagine it's handled.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we've been digging into that. I imagine so. Danian has been looking obviously into what K Gateway would do. I imagine whatever K Gateway does, like it may actually be easier for Istio. I'm not sure. Istio already kind of has a working multi-cluster model. K Gateway kind of has to build multi-cluster too here. So maybe the Istio solution is easier. Ryan, I don't know if you've already started to think about how you would make this. Not to put you on the spot, but
we already we kind of already have the architect figured
okay.
that the that's why I asked for the details of that inference pool import, because initially I don't even know what's inside that.
Yeah, well, that's
right. We need to route based on some of the information in that, because that will become the HTTP route backend, right? So our controllers need to read this, depends on what's inside that import, we can see what we can do. So now we do have some details in that. That's why I'm skimming through that things to kind of piece together our implementation, our architect. And for our architect, just to be clear, our architect is we want to have a front end in before the each individual cluster. So we will have another Istio sitting there before each cluster. So the routing will go directly to that front end instead of going collect every EPP, because collecting every EPP everywhere just seems to be a bit too difficult. So that's basically our high level thing. But then the devil's in the details, like how do we pick? Right, I think in the previous proposal, I asked at least 5 times, how do I pick which cluster? Because when we get to a cluster, that part is solved. The single cluster won't solve that part, at least spell out clearly to me. What is not clear is how do we find one?
So
what I think will be the most compelling solution for most implementations is just going to be to make that selection based off of metrics from endpoint picker. We were talking. I was talking with Danian yesterday about like doesn't, I think K-gateway would also have that kind of intermediate cluster local gateway in play. And so it's, one possible interpretation of that is from the cluster local gateway, you're pushing information back, like the cluster local gateway is scraping endpoint picker in the cluster, and then phoning home to the parent gateway with, here's the utilization in this cluster for this inference pool kind of thing. That's one possible solution. I don't know if that's the right one. But I think the right one does revolve around getting that information from each cluster's endpoint picker. How you get that back to your main gateway is kind of, I think, going to be somewhat implementation specific. I'm not that familiar with Istio's architecture. But yeah, I think that the thing is, we will for sure have useful metrics on endpoint picker, and I think that enough gateways will be using that. I know GKE, where we're planning to do something different, we'll be looking at the metrics on each endpoint at least to start. But I think it's going to have roughly the same result.
Yeah, that sounds good. That's why I'm looking at the endpoint picker import. I don't know if I can share the screen
Yeah.
of
Sure.
anyone.
Or Kellen may
If
have
you'd like
something.
to, yeah, I can give you go. 1 second. All right, you should be able to check.
Okay, thanks. It's like really just quickly. I'm looking at this, right? So this is the endpoint picker import. This is kind of, I'm looking at this wall as we are speaking. So this is a matrix endpoint. Is my oh, I'm not sharing yet. Sorry. Am I sharing now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Where's my surround? Am I sharing the right?
Yeah, I mean, we see the diff of the PR
Oh,
at
okay.
least.
Okay.
So,
This is the one you can see my cursor, like it's pointing to endpoint picker import, right? So the matrix endpoint are just currently I see that it's just a port. So that means the information is not in those import data. Data is not going to be stored there. It's going to be the controller needs to just get the information, see where the endpoints are, and okay, yeah.
wait. Yeah, I mean that's so. This was some of the unclear bit to I think all of us is John had earlier left a comment. So I think an earlier iteration of this. So basically there was a PR into Becca's PR, and now it's all together. But there were some comments on Danien's PR into Becca's PR, basically. And one of those was from John Howard, and he was basically suggesting that, like, if we just gave a cluster IP service, like the cluster IP is not going to be meaningful to a gateway in another cluster. So that's not sufficient. But it's like, what is the IP that you want? What is what is the thing that's going to be useful to that parent gateway? And that's what I think we're still trying to work through. We need some kind of address. Maybe it's not an IP, maybe it's a host name, DNS name. But this would be, would appreciate your feedback as maybe if you can share what you're thinking about for Istio architecture here, and we can help fill in the gaps together. I don't know.
I mean, I'm still trying to figure out how exactly we can use, what's the, yeah, I'm still trying to figure
I
out
mean,
too.
I think the gist of it is, if you say, hey, listen, we really need to be able to represent X in inference pool import status, that's a really good signal. So if
Yeah, my current debate is because if as you mentioned, right, eventually if we want to take it according to the metrics, and it's emitted by each EPP, somehow send it up to the hub cluster or some class control cluster. What type of information will surface to the API, and what is not going to be there is something I haven't thought through. right? You probably cannot just collect you cannot put all the metrics into the API. That's too much. But if you don't put anything there, just an IP address or something, but even
well,
IP.
I don't. Generally, I think I think Kube API is the wrong place to, propagate metrics, because those metrics are going to change too rapidly. So I think you just need to give the endpoint where you can scrape metrics. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what that endpoint looks like yet.
Yeah, but then you have both the parent, the name kind of weird, but anyway, I understand this is basically gateway one, right? The front end one, and then endpoint directly. Does that matter to the user?
No, no, I
mean,
think
to the implementation, I probably don't care. But anyway,
right.
that's
So
the
this
detail.
is, in my opinion, the inference pool import status is almost entirely for the implementation. And so trying to provide enough information there that will help implementations make this work. It is, probably useful if a user needs to debug or understand what's happening, but hopefully things just work and they don't need to look at this.
Yeah. And anyway, I think I'll stop sharing my last question again. Going back to my question was, how do we proceed? Like asyncly, I feel like we hopefully we can get some discussion before the next week's meeting.
Yeah.
What's the best way to do that? And sorry,
Plus,
Karen has a hands up there.
Right. Yeah.
No, here, I'll capture yours. How to coordinate async. I'm just capturing that. My question was a simple one. I've been unplugged from this intentionally. Apologies. I'm just trying to limit my scope so I can focus on what we needed to deliver. But question with exporting, import export. So let's say you have a parent gateway and it refers to these, maybe other gateways, other pools. You can still have multiple HTTP routes reference the same pool, correct? Like I could have two parent gateways that have a Venn diagram overlap of pools. Some are distinct, some are shared. Is that still acceptable in multi-cluster?
Yes. Yeah. That still works. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, then I would imagine your pool selection should definitely be based off metrics. I think our metrics will become a lot richer with flow control, because we should have a more sophisticated saturation detection. We're queuing at the pool level, so that will help explain where that pool is at. And that's actually one of the things I want to focus on post V1 is how do pools interact with the larger ecosystem. Sanjeev, you have a hand up.
Yeah, very quickly. I think the simplest solution without needing any kind of importing and exporting, where you leverage the fact that Istio is implicitly multi-cluster and you can have a single network model where the pods are all unique, and you can do DNS load balancing for the north-south, but you can have your east-west path for while the DNS is catching up to the failover. And that sort of basic solution should actually already work, I think, without needing any import export. But yeah, there's more detail to be looked at, and hoping to find some time to review some of these docs.
That's a good point. I will defer to other Istio folks like Ryan for how I'm not that familiar with architecture, but
no, I'm just to clarify, I'm not a Istio person per se. Just our current implementation architect, we pick Istio as our gateway implementation, so that's why our controller will be on the gateway. So it probably is going to be a reference implementation instead of I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, Rob, you can include me in your discussion. Maybe we
okay,
can...
I'll start.
I
I'll
was
start
just
a
gonna
thread.
Sorry, Rob.
Go for it, Colin.
No, I was just gonna say, if you post it, I think in our Gateway Inference extension channel, so people can hop in if they want. But sorry, Rob.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna drop a thread there to try and find time that works. I know we've got some East Coast folks and then some folks further east, like Itai. I think you're Israel, right? And I think we have maybe one or two other people in Europe. So we'll try and definitely for Pacific time that means early, and we'll try and find a time that works. But cool.
Cool. And then I just have informational stuff that this is my agenda item. Just some pain points we came across in V1 and just forward looking. Pain points is basically the CI overhaul. We have some very brittle automated testing for benchmarking. Would love to harden that and expand it, as well as include scale testing, basically trying to make RC validation a lot smoother. This, maybe I'm the only one on this call that cares as the maintainer that has to manage the release, but this is important to me. Other things just to share: flow control and SLO prediction. Name TBD on the SLO prediction, but those should be coming soon. We have an experimental branch for SLO prediction so that they can iterate and work, since they're using a neural net, and there might be some learnings, just different ways of behaving. But I know we have some requests to expand our pluggable system. That will be upcoming. The Inference Objective API will be expanding as well. We have some cases that we regressed a little bit on when we moved away from inference model, so we're looking for a way to fix that. And I think part of that will be the VBR expansion. So this is all stuff that I hope we can tackle. Maybe not completely done, but make really good progress on in the next quarter, maybe by end of year. And then kind of what I was mentioning is Inference Pool has we need to make sure it's communicating effectively with the larger system. In LLMD, they want to be able to pull compute resources from one pool and give it to another. So how we handle that, how we enforce that fairness policy of sharing compute between pools is a new problem that we need to solve and figure out how pools work with the larger ecosystem. That's just kind of a general top of mind things I've been thinking about, having put V1 down. Just sharing, just to be communicative. If anyone has any questions, feel free. Otherwise, we can open forum or call it short today.
Has there been work done on the performance of different schedulers and scorers? And it feels like there's a lot of built-in scorers, and then there are these pluggable scorers, and it's not very clear what the guidance is. Like, do you use all the scorers? Are they? Yeah, I feel like that space could do more.
Got it. Okay, I can capture that. I will say, by built-in scores, do you mean just the extension points that we have inside the repo? Because those are all still using the pluggable framework. They're just part of the repo. We just consider them graduated, if you will.
Right. Like, is that, like, for example, did we decide that there are some scorers which are so common that they should be in the upstream GIE, and then some scorers either because they're specific to LLMD or not quite graduated, like, because some of this could apply to potential VBR expansion as well. Yeah.
I'll answer quickly, and then I'll let Itai go because Itai's got his hand up. But the goal is that LLMD incubates and comes up with new ideas, things that we're not entirely sure is good for the whole ecosystem. But then things are intended to be upstreams to Inference Gateway. We should be seeing precise prefix scoring come up relatively soon, and that should replace the prefix scoring we have now. But Itai, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll second that. I think that a lot of the experimental features might start elsewhere, but as soon as they prove useful for multiple use cases, they will go upstream into IGW. With respect to what to use, obviously there isn't one size fits all, but there are numerous experiments ongoing and some of the blogs to test under what conditions do each filters and scores produce better results. Down the road, at some point, we might want to make this more intelligent so that you can choose and switch either weights or specific scores altogether based on the actual observed workload to an inference pool. But that's not something that's currently being worked on.
Yeah.
Cool. And I need to maybe reach out to some folks in CNCF. I've avoided putting LLMD too much in documentation because they're not a CNCF project and I didn't want my hand slapped. We are close partners with them though. And you know, we work in very close collaboration. And in fact, there's cross-pollination. A lot of people that show up to this meeting also show up to the LLMD meetings. So need to figure out how we want to handle that. I'm happy to document it and share that partnership, but I don't want to get in trouble with some, you know, bureaucratic rule I wasn't aware of. So anyways, I'll take that as an AI.
Kevin, question about the predictions, the SLO prediction.
Yeah.
In the past, they were, I think, Python based. Is this still the case?
It's
And
a
if so,
sidecar.
how are we integrating them into the GIE flow?
Yeah, it's a sidecar, and they're making a call out. Yeah, they currently have 3 replicas, and the way they're doing it now is they have the 3 replicas and the EPP container, and that's all one pod. So obviously you can't really scale up and down. They're kind of limited in how they are doing things. We really want to avoid creating a separate service that they have to call out to, because that creates its own set of issues that would really increase operational complexity. When I don't want to, you know, I heard an idea from Maroon, and then I know folks within Google have been working on SLO prediction, so I don't want to steal too much thunder, but you mentioned the dynamic weighting. I'm wondering if we can kind of pair these two, because currently the SLO prediction is kind of combating with the role of the scorers that exist. It's basically just taking them all and packing them into a model and using that trained model to give the SLO prediction. But what I think it's doing under the hood is it is tuning the weights, right? So I'm wondering if if we could get more scale and performance out of the neural net. Actually, I think it's not a neural net. I need to remember and look and see what model it is. Kaushik can tell you. But anyways, the point is that I think instead our output, instead of saying this pod is going to give you your best performance for this request, I think instead we could say weight the scorers in this specific way given the current pool conditions, and maybe that I don't know if that would help with scale, because I think you still have to ingest pod metrics, which is the problem. But anyways, I'm just thinking about that as a way to generalize the model, because I think the model is going to be very specific, and if someone adds a custom score, that would totally upend what the model is trained on. That's me hypothetically, but I am not an ML expert. So
Neither am I, but I think that the prediction can actually play in 2 independent parts. One is whether you want to admit a request at all, because its SLO based on the current system load actually means that it will be rejected down the line. So you might as well just return a response immediately. And that's an estimation. And then a separate place where predictions play is, given all of the information that we have, all of the scores, whatever, all of the state, which pod would make the most sense for that?
yeah, and that's a great point. I wonder. We need to figure out what kind of I'm really excited to have flow control join the system because, that touches on these multiple layers, right? Like you're talking about the prediction and the flow control. So that's the saturation. We have this very, very simple saturation detection now. Hopefully with flow control, we have something more sophisticated. Do we attach a model there to decide entry? But then we would have to run inference twice, right? Like, because if it's like, no, it'll meet SLO, but you have to hold in queue, the pool state might have changed. And so then we need to infer again. Maybe that's okay. These are just things I'm calling out, and we don't really have, these systems have not yet been implemented. And so we don't even know how they can interact. But anyways, Sanjeev.
This is a different topic. So if you,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm okay if Itai's okay.
one other area that has appeared nebulous, somewhat nebulous to me, again, not having been in this working group very long, is the degree of dependency on VLLM. Like, it is with LLMD, I can understand that that is very much dependent on LLM, on VLLM because of the KV cache and so on. But is the goal of GIE to eventually become independent of VLLM? There's not that much dependency on VLLM, and some of these discussions we have about the LoRa naming and all that, they are actually related to some things that is VLLM specific. So it'll be good to have a direction there that either we intend to stay tied to VLLM or we intend to be decoupled, and which are the areas that need work to get decoupled. Like that whole VLLM dependency could do more.
Yeah. So we are not intending to remain tightly coupled to VLLM, ad infinitum, but they are a close partner of ours, and iterating and moving quickly with them has worked the best. I am cautious to put any work on us to try to bring other model servers around, but we did originally have this idea of a model server protocol where we said implement these metrics, these endpoints in these specific ways, and you will just work with Inference Gateway. With the system becoming pluggable and dynamic, a lot of that has changed. The model server protocol would only work for very specific defaults. So it is true that it's nebulous, but I think it kind of has to be right now. I'll stop talking and let Shmuel add in there. But go ahead.
I think the tie is actually not so much, well, the metrics is tied to VLM very tightly, but the inference itself is actually tied to the OpenAI APIs and less so to VLM. Just happens that VLM implemented them as well, but and other servers, for example, Tejas, I don't think did, but that's the way.
Does that help answer,
Yeah,
Sanjeev?
I mean, we need to have a position. I mean, maybe it is that there is a long-term goal to become independent of VLLM, but and these are the areas which would need work. My initial thought was that really LLMD should be the only component that should be VLLM specific, and GIE should be somewhat independent, but having a direction there and then some target uh, areas to change, I think would be good.
Sanjeev, I think that's a good idea. Kellen, do we have anything, any kind of issue sort of identified if and where we are dependent and on what? Because I know, for example, like you mentioned, the model server protocol, that's, sort of saying which metrics we expect and what format they should be in. And that might be somewhat VLLM specific at this point.
Yeah.
But as Shmuel said, that the API itself is OpenAI API. If SGLang supports it as well, and obviously VLLM has a native API which is not OpenAI compatible. So Sanjeev, we're not tied in that respect to VLLM itself, but more to the OpenAI APIs.
Yeah, I agree. I think there is not that much VLLM dependency, but there is some, and whether we want to eliminate that some is the point. I mean, that LoRa adapter thing is also a VLLM dependency.
Yeah. Right. So I will say I agree with everything that's being said. The problem is just execution, right? Like some new technology comes in and we want to implement it as soon as we can. Well, we have a close partnership with VLLM. Maybe we can go and contribute. Bang! It's implemented. We're moving, and that's kind of been the mode of operation we've been in, is to just get these things moving. So we could try to stabilize, and maybe it's retroactive, and I don't know, that might be tough for other model servers, but that to me is the best way I can guarantee that these things will be frozen. So like V1, I could say, you expose these metrics, these endpoints, this technology, because if we start to bring in PD into Inference Gateway, I don't know how SGLang or Dynamo or Triton handle the PD disag. So the retroactive uh, protocol surface to me feels like the best way I can guarantee, because I think looking forward, I can't lock us down because inference is so open field and things change on a dime. So I think if I lock us down, I worry about we basically just make our velocity slower because of that. Those are my concerns. I would love to see this work. We don't have to only work with VLLM all the time, but that's my thought.
I think starting to capture all of these would be useful when we go back in retrospect and figure out, where we are dependent. So maybe we should open the issue and just, have people like Sanjeev contribute, areas where they think there's dependency on VLLM.
That sounds great.
Question on the flow control. Has the API been stabilized relatively? Specifically, I have a use case where I need to park a request for an arbitrary length and be able to unblock it at some future point.
What is the big O of arbitrary length? Because we are capped by Envoy.
I guess it's okay to drop the request, but I need to, let's say something like a request that is, and maybe this is a bad example, but just if you're referencing a specific LoRa and it's not loaded, you might want to hold on to that request until the LoRa is loaded. So there's a condition. It's not a time constraint that I am aware of a priori, but if I can interrogate, let's say, using a side channel or whatever, when that LoRa is actually loaded, that would be the right time to release that request. So I'm asking, can we park requests not just based on criticality or SLOs, but due to arbitrary conditions at that point in time?
I know Luke. Sorry, Yutai, go ahead.
No, that was the end of it. Go ahead.
Okay. I know Luke specifically made the flow control in a way for it to be pluggable and extendable. If that's one of the extension points, I need to double check. There is a lot of code there that I haven't seen in action, so it's hard to reason about. But yeah, we can check, and if not, let's definitely expand that. I think we're very open to that. But right now, my biggest goal with flow control is to get that thing working end to end.
Sure.
But yes, I think that is a totally valid use case. So I will add this question here just to track it. Any other open questions? I think we'd be cutting short about 15 minutes early. Sanjeev, these are great points. I'm going to give myself another action item of dependence on VLM. I cannot spell when people are watching. I think that's it, unless there's anything else. Yep. Cool. Thanks all. Catch you next week.
Thanks.
Bye.